Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry for the video being so late, but I am here. If the video is dark or not, I don't know. I mean, the color might be weird. I don't know. My camera's being weird. Anyways, we have the grosses. Up first, we have Anne Juliet, and that did 95% this week and 98% last week, going from 1,259,279 to 1,097,034. So another great week for Anne Juliet. Even though the drop was pretty significant, as long as it's making $1 million, it's cool. A Beautiful Noise went from 55% to 54%, and 757K to 745K. Back to the Future went from 96% to 89%, and 1,355,068 to 1,113,824, which is a pretty significant drop again, but it's still making over $1 million, and that's what it needs to do in order to survive. Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club did gangbuster numbers with sold-out performances for both weeks, and 1,529,836 last week, and 1,731,227 this week. So it's definitely doing like amazing business, but I wonder what's gonna happen when Eddie leaves the show and when the hype starts to die down, because it is a very expensive show to put on. Hadestown continues to do amazing thanks to a resurgence in the show's popularity, but also it's had, A-list, celebrity stunt casting, and in some cases, smaller stunt casting, but it is still doing well, with 99% last week and 97% this week, and 986 last week to 900,000 this week, so an incredible week. Hell's Kitchen did 98% last week and 96% this week for 7 performances, going from 1,013,083 to 1,937K this week. So Hell's Kitchen is continuing to do solid numbers, even though I think it may not get the best critics' responses. It is doing exactly the kind of business. And again, this is a season of lots of musicals, but oddly enough, these musicals are doing better than like the shows last year, which were pretty weak financially. Akimbo went from 83% to 85%, and 462K to 474K. Lempicka did 87% last week and 94% this week, going from 357K to 344K, with an average ticket of only $43. And now this was, a little bit less expensive because critics were invited, but it's doing awful. I mean, I think, especially with how it did with the whole critics reviews and, the whole controversies around that, I think that this show is not long for this world, unless it gets a Best Musical nomination, which I'm not even sure if that's going to happen based on how bad the reviews were. But if New York can get nominated, I think Lempicka can get nominated. I'm going to be seeing Lempicka tomorrow, and my review will come out, also my thoughts and my take on what people have to say about critics' responses to Lempicka. But it is sad to see. Merrily continues to sell out, going from 1,261,919 to 1,465,504. Moulin Rouge did 100% last week and 99% this week, going from 1,428,271 to 1,388,633. Six did 98% last week and 96% this week, going from 1,019,087 to 940K. Subs went from 96% to 98%, and 520K to 609K for 8 performances, which is incredible for subs. Truly, it's definitely one of the weaker performing shows, but the fact that every week it's improving and the average ticket is almost at $80 is very good. This is exactly the kind of numbers that you want to see it doing. If it can get a Best Musical nomination, I could see this going into the 7s and the 8s. And I initially thought Subs was going to be a big flop based on advanced sales, but it's made a big comeback, and I'm very happy for it. But again, it is increasing week to week to week, and while the numbers are small, it is doing what all shows should be doing, which is going and improving week by week by week, going from 4s and 5s to 6, So hopefully next week there's a 7 in front of it, but I'll take a 6. But for right now, it's in the safe zone, but it's still not like a money maker. Sweeney Todd did 93% last week and 92% this week, and 1,382,192 last week to this week's 1,331,506. The Great Gatsby did 93% this week and 100% last week for 7 performances, and 1,122,972 last week to this week's 944K. Another solid, good week for The Great Gatsby, as long as it's in the $1 million club and in the 900,000 range. It's doing fine. And looking at advanced sales, I think this will do very well. And I don't think we'll see any decline really in number. We won't see any decline in numbers, but it's definitely not a cheap show to put on, and it can't realistically do anything below 900,000. I think like even 944 is pretty low for Great Gatsby, because their operating costs are probably like 950 plus, I'd say. So they're definitely like not a show that can, you know, go past 800,000 for sure. You know, if we start seeing 7s and 6s, it's over. You know, even 8s, you know, at least early on, is not a great sign. But for right now, I have been proven wrong and incorrect, and is doing quite well. And if you're a Gatsby fan, well, for now, your show is doing awesome. The Heart of Rock and Roll is continuing to be the worst performing musical after Lempicka, with 74% last week and 74% this week, and 270 last week and 214K this week. The Notebook, and so I think that will close soon. The Notebook did 93% last week and 84% this week, and 874K last week, compared to this week's 778K for an almost 100K drop. Pretty not so great numbers from The Notebook. Again, as long as it has a 7 or an 8 in front of it, it's doing fine. You know, 778K is by no means a bad week for The Notebook, but, you know, for the brand that it is, for the kind of people that it should be bringing in, it's a bit of a disappointment, and you're seeing those negative reviews starting to show off. But I still think it will do very well in the summer. It just might not be the box office $1 million plus hit that I thought it was going to be. And looking at advanced sales, they're not looking super hot. But again, I still think that it is not flopping by any means, and this wasn't a bad week for business. But the momentum it should be having is that it should be making $1 million plus a week. It's definitely not a show that, you know, probably needs to make around 800,000, 700,000 a week. So it's, you know, just kind of either you know, it's not like miles below, like below of where it should be, and it's not miles ahead. It's probably kind of right in the middle. The Outsiders did 100% last week and 99% this week, and 732 last week to this week's 787K. So solid numbers for the Outsiders. Again, you know, I think that their preview prices are a little bit cheaper, but I know their advanced sales are pretty high, and I think this will definitely make $1 million in the summertime, and I think this is already proven to be a massive hit, both financially and with audiences. The Who's Tommy went from 87% to 84%, and 1,003,258 to 1,045,618. The Wiz continues its domination, going from 97% to 93% for 7 performances, and 1,302,539 to 1,288,057. And Water for Elephants had not a great week, with 81% last week and 72% this week, and 1,026,327 to 945K this week. When its operating costs are 960, so it just almost made it. But Water for Elephants, capacity-wise, wasn't amazing, but its overall gross wasn't bad. But I do think Water for Elephants is definitely going to get support from the Tony nom that it's most likely going to get for Best Musical. But I think that my prediction of this show isn't going to last very long, is still remaining, because I think that it is the least popular brand out there compared to The Notebook, The Outsiders, you know. And I think it's the show that audiences are liking, but I think that most people are preferring or more going for The Notebook, or The Outsiders, or Cabaret, or Merrily We Roll Along. So in a lot of ways, I think this Water for Elephants is the underdog show of the season, and I do think that, sadly, unfortunately, it's not going to last very long, and I still think it will close in January, but I think it will do well enough in the summer to get it through the fall. But with a show that's this expensive, again, it only takes a few bad weeks to really make a dent. But we'll see. So a very interesting week for most shows and a lot of musicals, and I'm very excited to see what the rest of the season looks like. So let me know your thoughts in the comment. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.